Hey, you guys. It is Tuesday. This is Anything But Average Achieving Success in Life. It is 2 days before Thanksgiving, and every day this month I've been posting about someone or something that I'm thankful for. But I have selected my podcast to really bring somebody to invite somebody that I'm super thankful for that's had a huge impact in my life. And so had to have Chuck Fazio come on today, of course. Welcome, Chuck.
Well, thank you so much. What a privilege. What a
You
privilege.
know, if people don't know anything about you, they should. Number one, you and your wife, for one, your book. I give it away to all of my agents when I have them come in here. I tell them they need to read this book, and I refer to that book so many times when agents complain about, I don't like to do open houses. I don't know how I'm going to get my business going. And I'm like, let me tell you something. Chuck and his wife built their business. They started doing open houses. They sat in a vacant house and they held that sucker open every single day. And then they grew and they created this huge empire, and they have a huge empire, and they created one of the largest independent brokerage in the nation. And now they're like the biggest people in eXp Realty. So I want to thank you for being so impactful in my life, because you were in the beginning when I switched my company over. You were one of the only people that I confided in. I didn't even know you. I was
Yeah.
just told by Michael and Jay that I needed to have a conversation with you. And so I did. I trusted what they said. And they were like, he will show you the way. He'll answer everything that you say, and he will answer all your questions. And so I remember sitting in the parking lot of my office because I couldn't come into the office because nobody inside knew what was going on in my world. And so I sat in the parking lot, I think for about an hour, talking to you on the phone about what was I thinking and what was it going to look like and what could happen and all these questions. And you were so patient and so truthful and honest. And I never will forget what you said. You were like, let me tell you something. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be one of the best decisions of your life. You have to just trust in it and pray about it and then do it. And it's going to be hard. Yeah, it's going to be hard and it's going to be challenging, but the enemy always fights you when God has something great planned for you. And it was challenging in the beginning. And that was 2 years ago. And in these 2 years, I don't care when it is and what's going on in my world. I can text you because we have this divine connection because we're believers and we trust in him. And I can text you and I can be like, Chuck, I'm weary right now. I need you. I need some guidance, and we're on a call. And you have no idea how comforting that in my life is. And to know that I have you just means the world to me.
Wow. I'm speechless after that. But I look at everything as obviously as divine intervention, and God has a purpose and a plan. And I do have to say, EXP Realty is pretty impressive from the standpoint that you get to connect with people all over the country, and really the world for that matter. That uh, you didn't. I never really thought I needed that or wanted that. And it was funny because when I did get off the phone with you, you were one of the few at the very beginning that I started to experience. Wow, I actually connect with other people in the country, and was equally as nice for me. So yeah, it's a
And
fun journey.
when I look at it, like now here we are, fast forward 2 years later, and we are at the tail end of 2020, have went through a really wild year with a pandemic and just hate in the nation and all kinds of weird stuff. I was telling somebody the other day in my office, I look back on the way that God works. He works, and it's so crazy how he just opens the right doors and just makes these ways that we never knew. And so now looking back, prior to joining EXP, what if I would have said no? What if I would have told Mike and Jay, no, I don't think this is really a good fit for me? And I would have remained on my own as an independent broker where I was just by myself, had really no guidance and no one to collaborate with because everybody's a competitor. And what would I be doing right now? How would this year have looked? But instead,
Right?
I
Yeah.
never have been alone. Ever since we all joined together, it's like, some of my dearest friends are people within the company in different states. You know,
Yeah.
we do this, we do collaboration calls, and we're on the phone and we're texting and we get together quarterly and we do these things that nobody can understand. And I explained to them, what you don't understand is that 5% of the people are leaders and 95% of the people are followers. Therefore, most of the time you're around followers. And so when you find other people, other like-minded people, you're drawn to them. It's just this energy. You're like, oh my gosh, I got to hang out with these people. And it's the most comforting, coolest thing ever. It's like when you're in high school and you want to be part of the coolest kids on the block. That's, how I relate it to that. And so for me, going through this year, I never worried about what's going to happen next month with real estate. I never did, because we were on calls all the time. All of us have been on stuff all year long. Though we haven't been able to get together personally, we've been doing virtual stuff, and we are doing Zooms just like we're doing right now. And we are always prepared, because it's not one person making decisions. There's strength in numbers, just like it says in the Bible. And so when I look at my path of talking to Jay and Mike, and then my final conversation with you before I made the decision, and I had prayed about it, and I felt 100% comfortable in my decision. And I've never thought, oh my gosh, I've made a bad decision and regretted it. If anything, I'm like thankful, especially this month where I'm having to dig deep because of the commitment I made every day to think about, what am I really, really thankful for? What are those things? I am so thankful for my faith and my trust, because I believed and I was obedient and I just kept moving forward. And I'm not worried about what the future of real estate is, because I have you and I have our network.
Yeah, and boy, that summed up a lot of things, with EXP. And, I always had my wife, who was my partner. So, as I didn't really think we needed anything else. And I was always preaching, Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. And God commands us to be around each other. I mean, like he says, we're the body. And it's very important to be part of the body, not you're just going to be the hand and neglect the rest of the body. And with the EXP, as a leader, and you really summed it up, most people are followers. It's not a bad thing. But as leaders, when you're around followers all the time, it just sucks the life out of you. You need to plug in and get that energy and strength. And being around leaders like yourself, it's definitely refreshing. And the other cool part that I think the pandemic really brought out is virtual is not a bad thing. Think about it, Trish, we still never met in person, and we feel like we know you so well. And me and Angela just recently, a couple of months ago, went up to Michigan to go speak at a couple of events up there for the crew in Michigan. And it was like we already knew them. It was kind of weird. We're like, it seems like we've hung out before. So it is pretty cool. EXP is definitely the future of real estate. It is real estate right now, and it's going to get bigger and better.
Well, one thing that I always, because I've been replaying this whole month. And so the day I made or was talking to Woods and Jay and Mike, I was sitting there, and, Woods is a big believer. We've talked about that. And I was sitting there at the table with Woods, and I was like, Jay and Mike, they're at a much high caliber of volume and income, and just a higher caliber. And that's what you're supposed to seek. You're supposed to seek people. You're not supposed to be the smartest kid in the room. And it's like when I first made contact with you, here I am, a little independent broker. I got 50 agents. It's like I'm nothing. And then I'm able to have conversations with you who at that time had 800 agents, then grew it to 900 agents. And it's like, that is a massive growth. I mean, nowhere near. We're like on a seesaw, and I'm down here and you're up here. It's like no comparison whatsoever. But it was like, you never talked down to me. We're the same. We're people. We're people at the end of the day. And the coolest thing is like, you really want to help me. I don't feel weird calling you and feel like you're thinking, oh my gosh, Trisha's an idiot. I know that you really want to help me.
Sometimes I might have said that. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
That's awesome. But it's
Yeah,
the truth.
it is. It is. Well, I mean, I don't know if I want to, say, at least for me, that's more being a Christ follower. We're all created in the image of God, and none of us are any less than each other. It's just the way I live my life. I'm very humbled that God's even blessed me to the capacity He has. And me and Angela, are the same. We wake up every day going, I don't know why you chose us to do this, but it's for your good and your glory, and that's what we're going to live out. Yeah.
Another thing when I think about all of like the coolest things that have gone on in my life and how thankful for that I am, because me, like my husband, he's not involved in the business at all. It's just not his thing, and that's fine. Completely, he's a great, great man, and we probably wouldn't work great together at all because I'm type A and it's like never sit still, and he's passive. And so for me, and prior to being with him, because he's my second husband, I already had my real estate company going. So it's always been mine. And so I'm always seeking and needing guidance naturally because I'm by myself. So when you look at like most successful teams, brokerages, there's usually two people involved. There's usually a husband and wife or partners involved because it's like the yin and the yang. And for someone like me who's trying to figure it all out and there's not really that right hand person, I need you. I need people like you. I need our group, our support, because where I'm weak, y'all are strong. And maybe where y'all are weak, I am strong. And so I believe that this divine intervention has brought the best of the best out of all of us. And it's like in this melting pot of
Yeah.
people on the same mission to create a better life for those struggling agents out there. Because the fact is that average agents, they don't live an abundant life, most of them, unless they have a spouse that's paying a lot of it. But when there are people like me who are hustlers and have, had to fight their way for everything that they have, I want to give back. I want to help people. And this gives us more of an opportunity to do that. And I know you're the same.
Yeah, and it's what this company fostered, and it's one of the reasons why we moved the entire brokerage, because what's big to us is who you align yourself with, and the concept of people helping each other. Now, don't get me wrong. There's an underlying financial benefit, but let's face it. We all need to make a living. But the way the concept was structured is everybody truly helps each other because they really do care, and it is for the better of the whole. So yeah, it's what a journey, and I just think we've just begun.
Well, Chuck, I know that most people that watch this are in the real estate world, and they may or may not know of you, but they probably don't know the magnitude of what you left, what you had, and where you began. I mean, you're a completely different person than you were 20, 30 years ago, how your life changed, and then how you grew this real estate company. So if you could, would you tell a little bit of your backstory, please, so people understand how big this is in your life?
So the backstory of my life or the business?
Both, a little bit.
Both. Okay, so grew up in New York running nightclubs for the mob, and was into drugs and just crappy life, and moved to Arizona, got to meet my wife, and we found the Lord. God radically changed our life to the easiest way of looking at it is you're blind, and then you see. And when God takes the blinders off and you see life according to the way He created it and designed it, you start to live differently. And not better, not perfect, but differently. And we started we were broke. So when I met Angela in 2001, selling real estate, she joined a team I was on. We were broke, almost got out of the business, and God basically moved us. It was more of a leap of faith. And one of the mottos we lived by was, we walk by faith and not by sight, and just trusted in God. Went on to be one of the top agents in the country, ran one of the top teams in the country. Thought our next logical step in the production of business in the real estate world was owning a brokerage. So we opened up a brokerage in 2005 and quickly built that up to be one of the top brokerages in Arizona, and then into one of the top brokerages in the entire country. So we were ranked as actually the number 2 single office brokerage in the world, doing almost $2 billion in production a year. So the EXP model, when it was introduced to me at that time, I'm like, I really didn't have an interest because we're successful. And, one of the things that we teach a lot of people is being comfortable is a bad place to be. Most people think it's a good place to be. Being comfortable is a bad place because you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. And, you might not know it, but when you're comfortable, you're going to start to move backwards. So anyway, we're seeing massive success. We know the market's good. We know what we're capable of doing. But one thing that I see, Trish, and I know God's given me a gift of to be a visionary. And it's not me that I think I'm any great. It's God definitely gives me visions, and most of the times comes to fruition. So one of the things I said to Angela, I go, technically, even though we have 900 agents doing $2 billion a year, we're really a mom and pop shop, just a really big one. And it's just me and her. And we got the world, not just the real estate industry, but the world itself is changing at such a rapid pace that you got to constantly be evolving. And that's a lot of energy, it's a lot of stress, and quite honestly, sometimes a lot of money.
Yes.
And so what I started to realize is the real estate industry, and it's such a big industry. This is not a little industry. For such a big industry, we were behind the times. Every other industry is changing, becoming tech savvy, changing its model. The real estate industry is really still the same archaic industry that it's always been. Now, you might have different fee structures and different type of brokerages for the most part, but I joke around. I go, if you slap lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig.
Right.
And that's really what the industry was doing. But EXP was different. They're a completely different model. And me and Angela said, we really, really need to consider this. And the extent of how hard that was, so to put in perspective, my company is valued at about $15 million. And we make a lot, we make good money. And the problem was there's no guarantees, number one, how many agents would come. Number two is nobody was paying me for my company. I could have just sold my company. So they weren't paying me for the company. They weren't giving me any incentives. So this was a complete risk. I mean, it's one of those risks of jumping off a cliff and hoping that somebody had the rope tied on the other end.
I bet.
And I'm a builder. I mean, I know what I'm capable of doing. But I have to be honest with you, for 6 months when we were going through constant prayer and process, I don't think I slept one night. And I would wake up in the middle of the night with anxiety attacks. And that's not my personality. Because my personality is, if people think I'm crazy, I go, what's the worst that could happen here? Is I die? I'm going home. We don't live for here. So when you go through that type of mindset in your life, you don't really fear anything. But there's a difference between fear and there's a difference between carelessness and, ruining something that we have. But God made it clear to us, and we moved the brokerage in end of January, and all of a sudden a pandemic hits. And it was funny because, believe me, I don't wish ill on anybody. I mean, nobody wants to get sick. But I say the pandemic was the best thing that happened for us because it just solidified our move where people looked at us and said, "Were you guys psychic?" Like if we would have not done that, that would when this pandemic hit, the fact that it closed everything down and a lot of stuff went virtual, we weren't set up for that, and it could have been catastrophic for us. Anyway, so we always go, God got a plan. I mean, I'm not that smart. So yeah, but what's that?
Isn't that amazing how that worked out? Has worked out?
Yeah, it's the best move we ever made, and you know we're very dependent on our Lord, and He guides us in everything. I mean, like, I'm not a patient person, but when it comes to Him answering prayers, I'm pretty diligent, and I run all my businesses that way, and He always comes through and makes things clear. And this decision, as hard as it was to walk away from that kind of money, and knowing how much money I would probably lose the first couple of years, to me it's an exciting journey to take a leap of faith to see what God has.
To do that, I mean, most people can't even think about that kind of magnitude in that situation, and I can't either. I can't imagine. That is a lot of money, and to have that kind of trust is huge. A lot of people talk about, and not so much, I don't think anymore, but in the beginning when we made the switch to EXP, there was so much talk about it's just a virtual company, that people don't even do business together. What they don't realize is that you have one of the biggest brick and mortars ever. Tell everybody a little bit about your building and why you built it and how you use it, because I think that's super cool.
So about 5 years, maybe 6 years now, time keeps moving. So 6 years ago, we were in our original space, and we had probably about 400 agents and one office. We just to add a little caveat. One time, we opened up another office about a half an hour away. We tried to expand, and it was the worst thing we ever did. We realized that our presence is that important, and it was a money pit. So once that lease ended, we were done. So went back to the single office. But one thing that God's always made clear to me is we were created to be around each other, and the synergy of two human beings is nothing more powerful. And as we were watching, people going away from brick and mortar or downsizing the brokerages, and we knew why they were doing it, especially coming out of 2007, 2008, people were cutting overhead because they live in fear. When you live in fear, you start to worry. And one thing that I learned about business is in order to make money, you invest money. You don't cut back. You actually put in. And if anybody's out there listening, I like to jump around a little bit, so track with me. If anybody's out there listening, one of the biggest things I find really funny with most agents is their mindset. And I can tell right off the bat what agents won't make it in the business. And it's the agent who have a scarcity mindset. And the scarcity mindset is this. When somebody says to me, I go, why did you choose the brokerage you went to? And they go, well, because they have low fees. And they get sold on keep your money. Oh, you get to pocket all your money. Well, that's a scarcity mindset, because here's what I say to people like that. Are you in the business to save money or to make money? Nobody's ever created wealth by saving money. And if that's your thought process, you're doomed. So anyway, as everybody was cutting back, coming out of these really tough times, God gave me a vision to build one of the biggest offices, to build a community space. And the vision was so clear to me. I kept telling my wife, like I visualized it to have a full bar and cafe and an event center and game room and pad, like everything a place could have under one roof. But we kept saying, there's no way we're going to do that. Like it's too costly. It's too, we're never going to be able to afford something like that. but the thought was really in my mind. And then we were getting close to our lease being up, and we started to look around at facilities to say, okay, maybe what if we get like an old supermarket or something, maybe 10,000 square feet, and try to do something in there. And we started to look, and we looked at a gym. There was an old gym. There was a supermarket. And we almost went under contract with one of them. And the guy screwed us over, like the commercial agent just screwed us over. And I was so angry. But you know what? The one thing I've realized in life is God's always got a plan. And sometimes God, especially for people like me that are just jumpers, God's got to hit you over the head. And sometimes it's using people to screw you over, to move you in a direction he wants you to go. So that's what happened. And we kept looking and looking. And then somebody said, hey, call this so-and-so up. They're a designer. And they said, go speak to our architect. The guy builds custom buildings. And you remember, we've been trying for months, and nothing was working out. Nobody could understand my vision, because my vision was very unique. And so we met with this design build, commercial building, and the guy said, tell me your vision, and I'm going to have my architect draw something up. And if he could come up with something that you want, would you use us? And I'm like, yeah, I would consider it. So we told him. 2 weeks later, the guy comes back with a drawing identical to my vision.
Wow.
You couldn't have made that up. And the space that he wanted, they had the space, great location. The space he had it on was right next to a school, and it was a perfect spot. But I said, here's the problem. I can't put a bar, because I got a Class 6 liquor license, that close to a school. So that we're doing, and I'm like, God, I thought this was the spot for us. And the guy called me back a week later, and he goes, I have an idea. He goes, instead of putting the parking lot in the back, he goes, let's put it in the front. He goes, I positioned the entire building, and and you have to be 300 feet away from a school if you have a Class 6 liquor license. It was 301 feet away.
Oh my God.
301 from point to point. And I basically said, if I go under contract and you screw that measurement up, I'm not taking the building. Yeah. And so we built the building, and we grew and grew and grew. People thought in the industry made fun of me. They laughed. They said that was going to be financial suicide for me. And it was one of the best things we ever did. We grew and grew. So then moving to EXP was the other joke. They go, all right, you built one of the biggest bricks and mortars, and this is virtual. And I said, don't think you can't marry the two. And we did. And we actually turned the building into a co-work space also. So now agents get business from other people. Everything just fell into place. It was incredible.
So on that note, now that you've been here with the company this year, and we've went through a pandemic, and let's hope things get better, what are your thoughts about next year in the real estate industry? Where do you see it heading?
Here's my thing. A lot of people come to me over the years, and they ask my real estate opinion. They ask you, what are the interest rates? And I am the furthest person from a detail-oriented person. Like, I don't even write down my goals. I know I should, but I just don't. I don't plan. I don't say, okay, in the next year I want this, in the next 5 years. Everybody goes, oh, every year you got to do a vision plan, and you have to write it out. And I've never in my entire life have done anything like that. And I don't condone that, because I do believe writing stuff down I think God's given me a certain gift that I visualize things and they come to fruition. So to answer your question, because I always get asked these type of questions, here's my easy answer. I don't know. The way I'm wired is I'll just outwork anyone. I'll figure out what I need to get done. I could change on the fly. If you ask any of my staff or the people that work with me, they warn new people that come in that Chuck could change direction within a minute. And I'm just given that gift. If I see something, just like the whole EXP thing, I mean, I'm going full steam ahead, building one of the biggest brokerages in the country. My pride and ego is like, this is mine. I love to see my name in every magazine. And then all of a sudden, boom, and people are like, what the hell just happened? And I go, I don't know either, but it did. So I think, this is what I think the market's going to stay good pending what happens with the election. And now, obviously, I know the election took place, but pending what the finality to it is going to be, if the Dems get in there, if they do anything radical or drastic. And look, I put my faith and trust in my Lord Jesus Christ, and I'm a Bible person. I believe every word that's written in that book, and the more and more that you read it and you ask God to explain it, the more and more it becomes real. And I'm watching Bible prophecy unfold right before our eyes. And if anybody doesn't see that and doesn't get it, here's my challenge to you. Seek it. Seek it. Because the Bible's what changed my life. And not only me personally, my business. The way I built my company are all biblical principles. And I will tell you, we're in trying times. I don't live in fear. I see people that are paralyzed by fear. And I feel sad for them. I feel sad because the fact of the matter is, not one of us leaves this earth alive. And, people say you only live once. No, you die once. Some people never live. Some people go through life, and it's sad. I have these conversations with people all the time when, people say, I got time, I'll figure it out. I go, says who? Where do you have time? You don't have time. Look, take risks, enjoy your life, be a blessing to others. And I always say, seek God. Really, seek God.
And I think when you live like that, then you don't live in fear. And naturally, there's always things coming at us, and there's always the unknown. But when you have that trust and hope and believe, then I think, like you said, we're not guaranteed we have tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow brings. We have no idea. We're not supposed to. We have grace for today. And I think more people need to practice grace. And I think more people need to be human. And again, like I'm with you about the election. We have no idea. We know the election happened, but we don't really know the outcome. And again, we just have to trust that we did what we were supposed to do. We voted. We put our trust in him. And that it is what it is. We can't change things, period.
God's in control. He causes and allows. And once you really understand that, you let go of, especially here in this country, we have this horrible tendency to think it's all about us. And it's not. It's, get over it. That's what I say. Move on, live your life a little. There's one thing that I always challenge people. When God says we were created in his image, the first question somebody should say, well, what is his image? And his image is very clear. And he says it right from the beginning in the book of Genesis. He created. God's a creator. If we're created in his image, we were created to be creators, to build. And people don't realize that. And if you're not doing that, if you're not growing, you're going against the way God created you to be, and no wonder you might be miserable. You're not living according to the way you were designed. It's like taking, you know what it's like? It's like taking a phone, and the phone was made to be a tool to talk. It wasn't made to be a hammer. So you don't stop bashing the nails with it. And it's the same thing with us. We were created for a purpose. And most people don't live according to the purpose we were created, and they want to know why they're miserable. I love building, love it. It's like a passion. It's like, I'm married to my beautiful wife who's the same way as me, and people want to know why are you guys like always happy or growing or just enjoying life? I go, because we're doing what we were created to do. Period. And we love it.
Yep. Also like growing the empire that you've grown and all, like you said, you love building. So you're definitely in building mode right now. But I'm sure there are days when you get up and you have a heavy load. You got a lot of, like you're doing a lot of calls, you're doing a lot of speaking engagements, you're growing again. And so there's days, I'm sure, where you get up and you're weary, or you're like, gosh, I really don't feel like doing this today. I'd rather not. But at the end of the day, you raised your hand and you said that you would do it. And if you don't, then who does? So I love that, and I so respect that, and I think that's one of the most honorable things. People ask me that too. They're like, I'm sure you got a heavy load on you right now. I mean, you don't have to do all that you're doing. And I'm like, but I said that I would. And if I don't, the minute that I retreat because I don't feel like it, then what happens,
Trish, I'm going to piggyback off of that. And you are spot on, but there's one thing you learn as a leader, and a grower, and I'm sure you're probably just like me when I'm going to say this. As a leader, and when you grow, you start to learn who to say no to, because you have so much. Because yes, the weight is heavy, but all of a sudden, especially with EXP, when making this transition, the weight isn't heavy because the people I'm doing stuff for aren't victim mentality. See, when I ran the brokerage, it was like, oh my gosh, I got to deal with that person, and that one's in the pot. I'm like, oh my gosh, they showed up today. They just sucked the life out of you. And I don't want my life to be sucked out of me. So you are right. I'm committed, but I'm committed to other like-minded people. I'm not committed to the victims. I'm not committed to the people who aren't willing to put the work in anymore. And that's liberating. That is liberating when you don't have to be a people pleaser.
That is, and it's so funny that you say that. Like in my world, I'm going through transition here in the office, and people have coming and going, and it's just it is what it is. But I specifically, because I was feeling that same way, where it was like, there was people in my life that were just negative and weren't doing what they said they were going to do, weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. It's like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing everything on my part. And so I just kept praying about it. I was like, God, please open the right doors, close the wrong doors. Please remove people from my life that are not supposed to be there. And I swear, Chuck, they're dropping like flies. It's like, well, okay, I asked. And so that didn't work out. That was like 2 weeks. Okay, next, I guess. Okay, I'm just going to trust that I'm not going to get stressed out about it. I'm going to trust that he's going to put the right person in my life that's going to make 2021 amazing.
That's awesome. You're so right. And it's funny because when we made the move, so out of a little over 900 agents, the whole thing was, we were trying to, it's very hard to transition a brokerage that size. And when I'm saying transition, it is one of the biggest things that I was nervous about. I don't know if that's the right word, not nervous, anxious, is who was I disappointing? Who was going to be mad at me? Who was going to trash me? And who was going to be happy? And so the thing was, once we said, all right, we're going to do it, the daunting task is, how do you tell 900 agents at one time? Because if you don't tell them at one time, the word spreads out and it could be catastrophic. So it was one of those things we were going, how do you do this? So the only way we thought was, what if we invite groups of our top agents to our house for dinner and kind of have a conversation, but don't talk about EXP, almost set it up to try to get a feel out. After the third one, because we had about 6 of them scheduled. After the third one of the agents picked up on what I was probably doing. Because we would always say we're never moving the brokerage, and that wasn't our intent. And he wound up calling a team lead at Keller Williams. And so, boy, when it's probably worse than throwing gasoline on fire. It was like a nuclear bomb went off. Our agents started blowing up our phones, going, "Is it true? This is what I'm hearing." And it was just, there was no way you could even put out that fire. It was impossible. So we were like, all right, we got to start to have explainer meetings, 30, 40, 50 agents at a time inside of our building. Because we knew if we would have said, "Hey guys, we're gonna do this event. We want all of you to show up for it, and in our building we could hold 200, but we're going to do an website because we needed 900." Everybody would have known something was up. That wouldn't have been cool. So anyway, here's where I'm going with the story. We talk about God taking people out of your life. So word got out. It was horrible. And out of 900 agents, we lost 600.
Wow.
So when you try to calculate making the move from a financial standpoint, it's impossible to work out the numbers. We sat with Chris Bear and Sam Rodriguez, and, because we were trying to go, okay, financially, how do we make this move? Because that was the next. And I sat there, I threw my arms up. They go, "There's no way." Because they kept saying, "Well, when 900 agents come over, you'll be making." I'm like, seriously? You really think? Look, I'm not an idiot. I thought we'd lose 400 agents. Angela thought we'd lose 2, but we lost 6. So here's
Wow.
where I was going with it. When those agents left, most of them were the problem agents. Most of them were agents we didn't want to be in business with. It was the way God designed this to clear it out. And I can't tell you how many agents thanked us for being true leaders. And literally, this is the words they use: "Thank you for getting rid of the shit out of the company." And I go, "Well, it wasn't me, it was God, obviously. I'd have loved to keep all 900 of them." So,
Yes.
yeah. So I got a special guest I'm gonna bring on.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Hey, you.
Yes. So
Hi.
I'm gonna bring her on for a little bit.
I have another Zoom.
Oh, she's zooming all day too.
How
Yeah.
are you?
I'll see y'all soon.
Why don't you come visit?
I'm going to.
Good.
Yeah. She's got look what she came down to get.
Goldfish and an apple.
Goldfish and an apple.
The lunch of champions.
Yeah.
It is. I love it. Y'all are so
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah,
Chuck,
so
I'm
she's
just like so honored for you to be in my life, both of y'all. I mean, I think you guys are a force to be reckoned with. And, when I look back at, like I said, of all the transition and everyone that's come and gone out of my life in the last 2 years by switching over to EXP, I can't imagine what the next 2, 5, 10 years are going to be like. I was even on the phone with my dad last night, and we were talking about the stock in the company. And my dad said, "What do you think about pulling some of that money out?" And he wants me to put it in something conservative, right? And be safe with it. And I said, "Are you out of your mind? Why in the world this stock is exploding?" And he said, "Yeah, but what do you think about the company? Why are you so convinced that it's safe?" And I said, "Dad, because I know the people that are part of it, and I know the drivers, and I know the people that are building it, and they're not about to let anything shut down. We have only just begun."
Yeah, you know what, man? I love that you just said that because, sometimes fear always creeps in and goes, "Well, what if it doesn't work?" And you know what? I look around every day when online and in Facebook and in the groups, and I go, the people that are running this company, which is us, are the biggest and brightest people in the industry, and we all have a passion for this company, and we're attracting more and more. There's no stopping us. I say we're a juggernaut, and no other companies are going to be able to compete because the people building the company are the leaders. The people that are building their company are paid employees.
Yep.
There's a difference. There's a difference, and that's what's going to keep our company at the top.
What are some of your thoughts about 2021? What do you think the agent count will get to?
I have a goal because as a leader, I always have to have a vision. And, without visions, you just go through life aimlessly. My vision is 100,000 by the end of next year. When we did that EXP Con, and they asked me to speak on a panel, and then they said, "What do you want to speak about?" I go, "I want to speak about getting to 100,000 agents next year." So I really believe that, and I know Dave is like, he says it too, but he's like, I know it's a lofty goal. No, I'm going to hit it. As a matter of fact, I actually said that we had dinner with Glenn Sanford the other night, and I told him that. I go, I know you think it's even you think it's a big lofty goal. Not saying you don't want to hit it, but I really believe we could hit it.
I do
believe
too.
we could hit it.
I do too. And I think, like I was talking to my agents at our sales meeting, it's like 2021, we have already so many disruptors, but when you really look at the projections and you look at the economy and you look at the people that are driving like our bus, I feel sorry for those people that aren't part of us and that don't see it, because those people aren't being guided and they don't see what we see. And it's like those people are going to get left behind.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to happen. There's some people at our own company that don't get it, that came, but they don't get it. And hey, look, some people are wired for it, and some people are. I just go, Lord, thank you for giving me the gift of being wired for it and being around people like you. And you know what? I go one better, Trish. Here's where I go one better. It's not even the business part. I feel people who don't have their eyes open to the Lord. And how do you go through life like that? It's hard. I recently lost my dad, and I'm not sad about it. He lived a good life, and to me, any life living is a good life. Period. Because eternity is way bigger than, I don't care if it was 5 years if somebody lived, or 100 years. And it's that type of people I feel bad for.
On that note, when you bring that up, like I talk to people about that stuff all the time too, when there's people that are non-believers and, they come at you with this, what about this? And what if, and what if, and what if? And I tell them, all I know is this. I know that there's a God. I know where I go when I leave, I'm going to paradise, and I have comfort in that. What I tell those people that do not know God and do not have that relationship, I tell them, what if you're wrong? Yeah. What if you're wrong? Are you willing to live your life here on earth and then go to hell? No.
They have more faith than I do, is my opinion. But my faith got lived out. I felt it. I'm not radical change. I know the difference. Some people never get what I got, but I don't question the Bible, not because I know the Bible, because I didn't know the Bible. I don't question it because I felt it, and I could feel it every day. You don't take the wretch that I was and almost overnight turn them into this. You don't take a womanizer degenerate to be with a woman that we don't spend a minute apart. It doesn't even remotely make sense. It's so supernatural. And here's the other thing I say to people who have a lot of questions, about, well, what kind of God do you have if he lets this happen or he lets that happen? And one thing that I do say is he's God and you're not. And I love how Jesus always spoke in parables. And I believe with all my heart he spoke in parables because he was clear. He said, my sheep hear my voice. He doesn't say everybody hears my voice. And when you speak in parables and you don't know him, you don't understand what he's saying. But when you do know him and you read a parable, you go like this. Oh my gosh, you can't even make that up. And I always love the parable of the potter who makes the pots. And they say, who is the pot to say, I was made to be used and thrown out, and this one was made to be put up here. And it's a very simple analogy of here's what God is saying. I'm the potter. You're the pots. Some of yous aren't going to heaven. You will go to hell. And don't question me because I'm the creator. And some of yous I put up here because you're going home. And as crappy as it sounds to some people, he's God and we're not. And I always look at situations, stop taking situations in a single context and look at it as bad. So people go, well, look at that, that's bad. And I believe that God's always working for his good and his glory. We don't know what that means, and you might never see what that means. But here's my analogy to you. So if I said to you, if you were to take a stick of butter, would you just eat a stick of butter? You'd be like, oh, that's horrible. Or would you take a whole thing of sugar and pour it in your mouth? Or flour? Each one of those eaten on its own is horrible. But put it all together and put it under a little heat, and you can make yourself a nice cake. You see, you don't see those ingredients and what they were going to make standing alone. And that's the difference. And that's how we go through life. We look at those ingredients by themselves and don't realize what God's doing over here.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that.
So,
Hey, you and Angela are going to have an amazing Thanksgiving, I'm sure. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
that was my pleasure. Thanks for staying persistent. I felt like a bad friend.
No, I knew I would get you eventually because I'm like, crap, you better hurry up because the month of November is almost done and I need to get you on here.
Yeah, you were a good salesperson. You were a good salesperson. The way you did it, I said, no wonder she's so good.
Hey, Chuck, if somebody wants to reach out to you and learn a little bit more about your life, how can they find you?
If you Google my name, you will find me all over. Like Fazio. Or go to the Iconic Power Couple on Facebook and you get to see all the stuff we do. Yes.
I love it.
Trish, I love you as a partner and as a person, and we can't wait to see you.
Yeah, definitely. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving.
God bless you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.